a warm welcome to Racing Post Sport for an episode of Bets Club. We're going to be previewing the 2022 Betfred World Snooker Championships, of course, at the Crucible today. Delighted to be joined with Aaron Ashley and Henry Hardwicke, two snooker gurus from the Racing Post Sport desk. We're going to be taking you through the best bets throughout the tournament and analysing all of the action that we're very excited for. Aaron, this is a fascinating tournament. It's unique. When you're previewing it and you're looking for where your money's going in this tournament, do you almost disregard form going into it and just taking it fresh?
Yeah, morning, Jack. It's a difficult one. For me, I tend to stick with course and distance runners. You see time and time again, the same players, the same faces. They do it last year and they peak again for this event. So I'm not too worried about form at the start of the season. I just want to see players improving their form as the season goes on and peaking for the World Championships.
Henry, what about you? Are you the same as Aaron, or have you got your eye on the previous form slightly more?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's almost like a different game, isn't it? Because so much of the tour is played over sort of best of 7 and best of 9 frame matches, and you know that's not even really a session at the Crucible. So yeah, it's almost a different game. Of course, it's worth looking at players that have gone well there before, and it's a different test. It's a long marathon of snooker. It's 2 weeks, and you have to, you can't play well in every single session of every match. So yeah, it's about minimising the damage when you're not on it, and maximising it when you are. So yeah, it is a different tournament to much of the season.
Aaron, defending champion Mark Selby, some off the table issues. We of course wish him well. He's still high in the betting, around 15-2, 7-1. What's the latest with him going into this year's event?
Obviously, Selby is one of those. He comes into his own over this event, and he is probably one of the greatest players of all time. He's just so gritty, such a battler, and he can win frames from nowhere, and that's what makes him so dangerous. This year, though, obviously, he said he's been battling with his mental health, and that has had a big impact on his snooker. This season, he's down at 28th on the one-year ranking list, which shows that his form coming into it is not as good as it has been in previous years. He's not been seen since he lost in the opening round of the Welsh Open against Liam Highfield, and I just think that although obviously he's a decent price if he does turn up in that form, I think there's reasons to definitely oppose him this season.
Henry, snooker's such a brutal sport, isn't it? I was listening to an interview with Sean Murphy earlier today, and I think he was saying a lot of people compare snooker and golf because you're out there on your own. But he was saying at the elite level, golfers have their caddies. Snooker players, you're on your own in there. It's tough.
Yeah, very tough. I mean, and obviously in golf, you can hit a good shot. You're always kind of in control of your own game. But a lot of the time in snooker, you're just sitting in your chair and watching the other guy knocking century breaks. And yeah, especially if you've made a mistake that's led to that chance, it must be very difficult to sort of clear your mind and get back focused for when you do get your opportunity at the table.
We'll stay with you, Henry. The two market leaders, Neil Robertson and Judd Trump, just the one World Championship title apiece there. Considering, how elite they are, you have to be classing them as underachievers in this tournament.
Yeah, I'd say so, particularly Robertson. I mean, he's obviously coming into this year in good form, having won 4 titles this season. But, it's nothing we haven't seen before from Robertson. He won the Tour Championship last year and was then beaten by Kyron Wilson in the quarterfinals. You have to go back to 2014 to find the last time the Aussie went past the quarterfinals in Sheffield. He's only won it once back in 2010. He's been beaten in the first round 4 times since then. He's quite a short price this year. So, yeah, I mean, their record at Sheffield, isn't what you'd expect from what they do for the majority of the season.
Aaron, Mark Williams, Higgins, Ronnie O'Sullivan still very high up in the betting here. For the more recreational snooker viewers who maybe just tune in for this event every year, they're probably surprised that these guys are still going so well. Does the Crucible and the World Championship suit these more experienced players with the longer format?
Definitely, Jack. It's not only the longer format, but it's the crowd and the experience, the pressure that comes with it. These players have handled it time and time again. They've been there, they've done it. And that is why they're still so dangerous. I mean, you can't write out any of the class of 92. Williams, Higgins and Ronnie, they've all got big chances again this year. They know how to settle. They know that if they are behind, they lose the first session, say 6-2, they know not to panic and they can grow into a contest. Whereas the less inexperienced player, they might think that they're in a bit of trouble and be going for shots they shouldn't go for. So yeah, their tactical nous just makes them so dangerous.
Really excited for this. Let's get into the outright market then. Your favourite, Neil Robertson, around 7-2, 3-1. Short price, well fancied going into this event. Judd Trump, 9-2. Ronnie O'Sullivan, 5-1. Mark Selby, 15-2. John Higgins, 10-1. Kyron Wilson, who I know is fancied by a few, 16-1. Bigger the rest. Henry, lots of people tuning into this, waiting for your outright tip. Who are we going for?
Yeah, one you didn't mention there, Jack. I'm going to go with Mark Williams at 33-1. I mean, I have to say, I think Neil Robertson at 4-1 is quite a poor price. So naturally, I'm looking to get with someone else, and there's obviously doubts over Selby and Trump. But yeah, obviously Williams won it in 2018. He made the quarterfinals last year and the year before. And on both those occasions, he lost to the eventual winner in O'Sullivan and Selby. He's been in good form this season. He won the British Open at the start of the campaign. He made the semi-finals of the Masters. And, of course, the Tour Championship was the most recent event, which Neil Robertson won. But, he only lost in the deciding frame to Ronnie O'Sullivan, and he played some excellent snooker in that. He's a guy that he's very difficult to beat, no matter what sort of form he comes into the event in. It's just a hard man to beat. He's a very, very astute tactical player. And he's been knocking in some big breaks this season as well. For me, the top half of the draw is probably the weaker section, and the first quarter, especially when you consider the doubts over Mark Selby, does look the weakest in the event. And I thought 33-1, you've got a 3-time winner there who's been there, seen it, done it, and for me, hasn't looked far off as good as ever this season. And I thought he was well worth an each way bet.
Yeah, big price. Aaron, it does feel like there's particular depth in this year's tournament, and the favourite short, Neil Robertson. Are you also opposing him?
I think there are definitely reasons to be taken on the Fab Four. You've got the big four, obviously, Robbo, Trump, Ronnie, and Selby. Robbo has been the standout player this year. He won the Players' Championship, the Tour Championship, and the Masters. But that Crucible record has to be a massive concern. And it's enough to be taken on the favourite, isn't it? He won it in 2010, and he's only gone past the quarterfinal once in 11 visits since. It's just not good enough for me. He's one of the greatest break builders ever, but that's a big put-off. He did say one time that he didn't particularly like the Crucible slog, the slog that comes with the Crucible, and it's quite a long tournament, quite a grueling tournament, and I think he may have burned himself out again this year because most players try to peak for Sheffield. I think that the gulf between him and the rest is not as big as it would be at the start of the season because he's in great form, whereas the rest tried to peak to Sheffield. So I think the gap between him and the rest is not as big as it would be. Selby, there's obviously got to be some concerns there, obviously, with him coming out saying he's battling his mental health, and he's not going to have had as much match practice as the rest of the players. So I'm happy to take him on. Judd's just becoming too inconsistent for me, and he can throw in a stinker of a session at any point. He was outplayed by Luca Brissell in the Tour Championship last month, losing 10-6. His long potting was off. He was losing the safety battles, and that's just very unlike him. So I'm happy to take him on. And also Ronnie, 17 days is a long time in the world of Ronnie. Can he stay focused throughout? When he won it 2 years ago, that was obviously played behind closed doors. And he did say that the hustle and bustle of Sheffield that comes with the event in Sheffield can be frustrating. People don't leave him alone. He doesn't like it. So I'm happy to take him on too. So yeah, Jack, that's me taking all of the big boys.
So with all of that being said, who aren't you taking on? Who is your best bet for this tournament?
I'm taking two against the field here, Jack, and it's two members of the class of 92, John Higgins and, as Henry just said, Mark Williams, who at 33-1 got a massive chance. He's dropped in the right quarter. If Selby's vulnerable, then he's definitely in the right quarter of the draw. Yan Bingtao and Barry Hawkins are also in that section, but Yan has lost in the second round in the last 2 years, and the Hawk, although he's had a good season and likes it here, he has also fell early in the last 3 years. I fancy Williams to beat both of them, and he showed in that 10-9 defeat to Ronnie at the Tour Championship that he's in good form. He's had 2 weeks extra since to fine-tune his game. He's going to come here in peak shape, and he's just a horrible man to face at the Crucible. 33-1, he's in the right section of the draw. He's coming in under the radar. That must be too big.
A compelling argument there. What about John Higgins then?
John Higgins, he's another course and distance runner, and that's certainly what you want here. He's a 4-time winner of the event, and he also made 3 finals between 2017 and 2019. He's made a lot of changes to his life this year. He looks healthier, he feels healthier, and that hard work has been rewarded. He's reached 5 finals this season, and although he's been beat on every single one of them, I would not be doubting his winning mentality. He threw a 9-4 lead against Robbo in the Tour Championship, in the final of the Tour Championship last time out, and I can see why people are doubting him because of that, because he missed an absolute horror red in the decider, which you just wouldn't expect him to miss. It must just be pressure. But firstly, how many players would have put themselves in that position against Robbo in a final? And secondly, how many times has Higgins bounced back from these damaging defeats? I just don't think you can write him off because he's got a lovely draw. I mean, Tepchara in his opener to play Luca Brissell, and then Robertson could be waiting in the quarterfinals. But we know Robbo struggles in this tournament, and he's fell at that hurdle in each of the last 3 years. So I don't think he should be worrying there. Ronnie could be waiting in the semis, but Higgins had his measure recently. He's won 6 of their last 7 meetings. And at 14-1, when the long format evidently brings out the best in him, that must be too big from an each-way perspective as well.
Now, Henry, I can see you nodding along, smiling there. It feels as if you've either conferred between both of you at the start of the show or you're in serious agreement. Do you have anyone else that you like the look of?
Yeah, no, we haven't confirmed, but yeah, I do agree with Aaron on John Higgins at 14-1. I mean, frame here and there, and he would have been a multiple winner this season. But he just won a bigger price, 100-1, about Hossein for 5. Obviously, for 5 is Iranian, and he's had quite a few issues over the last few years getting visas to play, and he hasn't played in many tournaments. But he's based in the UK now. And that is reaped its rewards. He won his maiden ranking event title this season when he lifted the shootout crown. Obviously, that's only a one-frame tournament, but it's still difficult to win. And he's a very solid player. He looked good in the qualifiers. I know he's got a tough opener against Judd Trump, but if he can come through that match, which you would give him a chance. I mean, Trump has struggled in the early rounds before. He was run close by Tom Ford. He's obviously beaten by Rory McLeod a few seasons ago. So if a fight could get through that game, Anthony McGill or Liam Highfield will wait. There's not too much to fear from that. And I just thought, again, if there was someone to go well at a big price, it could come from the top half of the draw, which was over the big two in that field. And I thought 100-1, it could give you a spin for your money.
100-1 shot. That's what we like to hear. This is all far too civil so far. I'm sure we're going to get some disagreements as we take a look at the quarters. Then we'll start with quarter 1, where the top 4 look strong. Mark Selby 7-4, Yang Ving Tao 3-1, Barry Hawkins 7-2, Mark Williams 4-1. Bigger the rest. Aaron, have you got sort of tips for all 4 quarters here? How are you playing this?
Yes, Jack. Obviously, Mark Williams, I fancy him to go deep, and I think he could have a run to the final. So I'm tipping him at 4-1 to win this quarter. It's obviously hard to know what shape Selby's in, but I am happy to take him on until we see what shape he is in. And then there's not too much else to fear here. I mean, I'd fancy him to beat Hawkins or Yan Bingtao. The one that could outrun his odds at a bigger price, if someone wanted to throw a cheeky fiver away, at 33-1, Jamie Jones. I mean, he plays Selby in his opener, and if Selby is vulnerable, Jamie Jones, he's been here before, he's made the quarterfinals. He could definitely capitalise. He breezed through qualifying. He beat Mark Joyce 6-1, beat Tom Ford 10-5. Tom Ford's a really, really good player. Jamie Jones is capable. 33-1, if he comes through that against Selby, tees up a second round clash with Yan Bingtao, he could definitely outrun that. So I'd have a saver on him at 33.
How about you for quarter 1, Henry?
I think Yan Bingtao's second favourite here, and I think that's a bad price. I think he's probably one of the most overrated players in the field. He's never been past the second round in the 3 visits to the Crucible. So, like on the outright, I would side with Mark Williams at 4-1, 9-2. Barry Hawkins could be a danger, but, there's obviously the worry over Selby and the likes of Jackson Page, Michael White, Chris Wakelin. They're not going to be good enough. So, I thought Mark Williams at sort of 4-1, 9-2 was the bet.
There we go. Let's move into quarter 2. I'll read the top 4 in the market. Feel free to expand on those at bigger prices if you wish. We've got Judd Trump here, 6-5. Kyron Wilson, 7-2. Ding Junhui, 6-1. Stuart Bingham, 13-2. Aaron, where are you going towards here?
I'm very keen to take on Judd here, Jack. Kyron Wilson, 7-2 is the obvious bet. His Crucible record speaks for itself. Ignore his debut in 2014. He didn't qualify in 2015, but he's made at least the quarter-final stage in his subsequent 6 visits. That includes 2 semis and a final. He's got the all-round perfect game. He scores heavy, excellent safety play, and he's got the temperament to match. So 7-2, I think he's got an excellent chance. And I'd be having a saver on Anthony McGill at 14s. Remember, Kyron beat McGill in that to tee up that final with Ronnie in 2020 in what was one of the most dramatic semi-finals you're ever going to see at the Crucible. Kyron won 17-16 courtesy of a fluke. It was just edgy as seat stuff. McGill's had a poor season, but he's another player that looks tailor-made for the Crucible. As well as that semi-final, he also made the quarterfinals last year. He's just got the all-round game, and at 14-1, I think he's too big. I could see Kyron and McGill meeting in the last 8, so I'll be backing both and sitting pretty.
Henry, quick word on Kyron Wilson. I know some of your colleagues on the sport desk are very keen, seeing a lot of shrewd judges mention this name. Do you fancy him to go deep?
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid option, certainly in the quarter. I mean, he's got a brilliant record at the World Championships. He's done everything but win it, really. In the last 6 years, he's made the quarterfinal, semi-final, quarterfinal, final, and semi-final. So he finished one off. Yes, it's a fair old record, yeah. So he's just missing the W, and he's got the set complete. But he finished up runner-up in Gibraltar. That should tee him up nicely here. I'm not really worried about the first round match against Ding Junhui. I know everybody said that he was the qualifier to look out for, but you know, I mean, when was the last time he played well? You know, and it wasn't if he went into the qualifiers and he breezed through. You know, it was a struggle for him to get through his 2 matches. So yeah, I mean, Trumpet is the favourite in the section, but as I said earlier, he looks vulnerable to me. So yeah, I respect Kyron's chance, and he looks a solid probably bet for around 7-2 in the second quarter.
Now, excited to see where Aaron and Henry are looking in quarter 3, because we see our favourite here, Neil Robertson, and we've also got John Higgins, who I know both fancy as well. So, Aaron, where are you leaning towards here?
I don't need to go into much depth on this one, Jack. John Higgins for me, yeah, he's 12-5 to win this quarter, and I fancy that. Robbo's Crucible record is, like we said earlier, is a massive concern for anyone getting involved with him as a favourite. He's been the standout player this year, but it's not the first time he's gone to the Crucible being the standout player and disappointed. Kyron Wilson beat him in the quarterfinals last year and beat him quite easily. And if John Higgins gets to the quarterfinal against Robbo, I could see John doing the same. So yeah, John 12-5 to win this one.
I'm not hearing much good stuff from either of you on Neil Robertson. Henry, why is he so short in the betting?
Well, yeah, obviously he's had a very good season. He's won four titles, and the latest of those come in the most recent event, which is the Tour Championship. Maybe there's a bit of recency bias creeping in there. You know, and he has been the informed player this season. And I guess there's doubts over the market rivals in Judd Trump and Mark Selby, but this is the shortest he's going to go off for the World Championship. So it's nothing new. You know, we haven't seen. He's not a guy that's just shown up and been dominating the tour. He hasn't dominated in the way that sort of Selby, Trump, and O'Sullivan have in the past. You know, we've seen it before. So yeah, I guess, you know, he is the form player, so he's naturally going to move towards the head of the market. You know, having said that, he's got, you know, an easy first round match. You would think against Ashley Hugill, and then Jack Lazowski or Matthew Stevens in the next round could come through there again. But then, as Aaron said, he's likely to meet Higgins in the quarterfinals. I mean, Higgins has got, you know, what could be a tough opening against Tetchara Un-nooh. I think you feel a bit sorry for Un-nooh. I mean, he's been to the World Championship 4 times. He's John Higgins twice, Trump and O'Sullivan. So he's clearly he's upset someone who's doing the draw. But I mean, you know, if Higgins and Robertson meet in the quarters, Higgins is about a 3-1 chance to win for. He's not going to be 3-1 to beat Robertson in that match. So I think you have to side with Higgins.
Okay, more agreement. Excellent. Let's move on to the final quarter then, where Ronnie O'Sullivan is your market leader. Zhao Xing Tong, Mark Allen, Sean Murphy join him in the top 4 of the market. Aaron, we'll start with you here.
I do think Ronnie is a worthy favourite to come through this quarter, because the fellow seeds in this section, they all have plenty to prove. I mean, Zhao Xing Tong has been superb this season. He's a rising star. He won the UK Championship and the German Masters, but longer format matches at the Crucible, they're a different ballgame completely. And he wilted. It's worth remembering, he was 8-4 up against Higgins in the first round of the Tour Championship last month. And yeah, he wilted. He missed a lot of balls. He started missing under pressure, and that would be a bit of a concern for me. So I think he's got a bit to prove over this format. For one reason or another, Mark Allen, he never tends to bring his A game to the Crucible. Only once since 2011 has he gone beyond the second round, which for a player of his ability is just not good enough. And then you've got Sean Murphy, runner-up last year, but he's way down at 29th on the one-year money list. He's not coming into it in the same form as he was. So with those 3 struggling, Ronnie, you'd have to say, is a worthy favourite to come through here. He has a really tricky opener against Dave Gilbert, I will say that. But if he comes through that, then you'd expect him to tee up a semi-final.
Henry, how do you kind of approach Ronnie O'Sullivan going into these championships? We know his quality. We also know his kind of mentality as well. It must be tough to kind of really predict how he's going to go.
Yeah, it can be difficult. I'd say this season he's looked more focused than he probably has in recent times. I think he's been on his game for the majority of it. I'm just not sure he's as good as player as he has been. He's clearly still capable of brilliant performances, but I'm not sure he's capable of them over a consistent basis like he has done in the past. I mean, I respect his chance in the fourth quarter, but as Aaron said, it's a fairly tough opener against Dave Gilbert, and I'll chuck one at quite a big price here, and that's Scott Donaldson at 60 to 1. Other than O'Sullivan in that section, you're looking at sort of Stephen Maguire, Sean Murphy, Mark Allen, all established but pretty disappointing performers. None of them have been in very good form of late. Donaldson hammered Alan Taylor 10-1 to qualify, and Taylor had previously beaten Rickard Walden, who has been having a very good season. So that looks solid form. He's got a real good all-round game. He's made 4 ranking event semi-finals in the past. He actually was suffering from health problems as well. He had some ill effects from the COVID jab, but he said he's over them now. And he's an improving player. He's still only 28. He's probably moving towards his peak now. And I thought at 60 to 1, he was worth a chance at big price.
Excellent. We'll recap the bets at the end of the show. We'll have a quick look at the first round matches though. And Aaron, any standout matches for you?
Yeah, there are some tasty ties, Jack, taking place in the first round. We've got Kyron Wilson against Ding Junhui, which is just an absolute belter. I do fancy Kyron to be too solid for him over a best of 19, because you feel like Ding has to win at that visit, has to one big scoring visit, and he has to win the frame there or then. Or Kyron's safety play is just too good and too solid. So I fancy Kyron to come through that, but it's going to be a belter. Then you got Ronnie O'Sullivan and Dave Gilbert. Obviously, Dave Gilbert a few years ago made the semi-finals, and he's a top player, lovely cue action, strikes the ball so well, and that could just be an absolute classic. And then Sean Murphy v Stephen Maguire. They've met so many times down the years, and that's another one. They're 2 top 16 players at their best, and that could be another cracker, yeah.
I feel like I've seen more of Sean Murphy in the last week doing the media rounds than I ever have done before. I think he's going for a career in punditry. Henry, we'll get both of your best bets shortly, but what are the matches you're most looking forward to here?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Matthew Stevens. I mean, obviously he's got great Crucible pedigree over the years, and he had a good win over Ali Carter in the qualifiers. It's also nice to see Michael White back. I mean, he's dropped off tour and he struggled massively over the past 3 seasons, so it was real bolt out of the blue to see him qualify. And obviously it should be a high class match between Ding and Kyron Wilson. Also Tepchire, John Higgins, that should be an excellent match. I mean, Tepchire made 4 centuries, including a 145 break. When beating Matt Selt, who'd been playing pretty well in qualifying. So, yeah, that should be another good first-round clash.
I feel like we've just reeled off every single name there. You're just excited in general.
yeah, can't wait. Yeah.
Aaron, what are your standout bets for the first round then?
It's obviously worth mentioning there's 3 debutants this year, Jack, to head into the Crucible. We've got Ashley Hugill, Jackson Page and Hossam Vafai, who becomes the first Iranian to feature at the Crucible. Iran's now the 20th nation to be represented at Sheffield Showpiece. So, yeah, it's worth giving a mention to those players who came through qualifying. I've got a couple of first-round bets for you, Jack. And as mentioned by Henry, Matthew Stevens at 13 to 8 to beat Jack Lazowski is one of my best picks. He's one of 6 Welshmen in the draw, and he actually had to win his opening qualifier against Gerard Green to stay on the tour, and he did so, winning 6-1. He then thrashed the capable Sam Craigie 6-1 before overcoming Ali Carter 10-8. He trailed Ali Carter 5-1 in that match, but knocked in 3 centuries on his way to a remarkable comeback. You just shouldn't be winning from that position against a player as experienced as Carter, but Stevens just played sublime. He didn't miss. He's a 2-time runner-up here, albeit many years ago. He's got the Crucible pedigree, as Henry says. And I think he'll fancy it against Lazowski. He won't be overawed by the occasion. And although Lazowski, obviously so talented, such a great player, and a joy to watch in full flow, he's won only 2 matches in 5 visits to the Crucible. And he is inconsistent because he can blow very hot and cold. So Stevens will fancy that one with those matches under his belt. And at 13 to 8, I think he's a good bet.
You mentioned the debutants there, Aaron. How do they usually go at the Crucible?
I mean, some qualifiers thrive, and having that valuable match practice under your belt can be a positive, but some just don't settle and they just find themselves all at sea. Hugill has to win an early frame, you fear, against Neil Robertson, because if he finds himself 4-0 down at the first mini session, things could get ugly very quickly. I think it's important to win an early frame and settle, because if not, we've seen it before. A lot of players here have come here on their debut and they've been thrashed 10-2, 10-1. So yeah, it's a worry. You've got to win an early one, I think.
Henry, you're excited. Let's get your best bets for the first round matches.
Yeah, starting with what I thought was probably the banker of the first round would be Kyron Wilson to beat Ding Junhui. I thought he'd be a bit shorter in 4-6. I mean, obviously you're backing Ding on the back class, but he's not showing that from some time. Even if he was to get back to near his best, it's still a big ask to beat Kyron Wilson. He struggled past Tang Peng Fei and David Liddy in qualifying, only beat Liddy 10-7, and Liddy wouldn't be anything like a 30-rate shot against Wilson. Wilson's won 6 of the last 7 matches between the two, going back to 2018. Not that, I pay too much attention to head-to-heads, but that just indicates the different direction that the two players have been heading over the last few years, and Karen to beat Ding would be my best bet at the first round. Just a couple of bigger prices. Obviously, I've mentioned their chances earlier in different markets, but I thought Scott Donaldson at 14-5 to beat Mark Allen was a fair bet. I mean, Mark Allen's only won 3 matches in the last 5 ranking events he's contested. He looks, really out of sorts when he lost to Neil Robinson in the Tour Championship. And then Hoss Amplifier at 4-1 to beat Judd Trump. I mean, obviously, I said before that Trump has struggled in the early rounds before. I mean, he should have lost to Chris Wakelin, but he managed to scrape through that. Tom Ford run him closed. He did lose to Rory and McLeod, and Amplifier is a far better player than McLeod. So, I thought 4-1, he might be able to bustle up Trump a little bit.
Aaron, for any of those viewers at home looking at players at bigger prices, what would be your advice? Because some of these sessions are brutally long, and kind of to the outside eye, it feels like there's less room for sort of variance here for fluky performances to happen. I
want to see players that have done it before, Jack. That would be my main suggestion. So players like, I wouldn't be putting people off players like Anthony McGill at 66-1, say, because he's been here, done it, and he's not going to get overawed or flustered by the occasion, and he's just got a lovely temperament. That's kind of what I'd be looking for. I've just got another bet for the first round, actually, Jack. And Jamie Clark, he makes his second appearance at the Crucible, and I think he can give Xiao Jingtong a cause for concern. He's even money with a plus 3.5 frame head start, which I think is an excellent bet. He came through qualifying 2 years ago, and on his debut, he beat Mark Allen 10-8 in his opener, and then he lost to McGill 13-12 in his second round match. He has come through tough tests again at qualifying this year. He beat Gary Wilson, who's a former Crucible semi-finalist, and then he beat a former world champion in Graham Dott, who actually made a 1-4-7 in his match before that. So he's reached the Crucible with 2 wins against 2 seasoned pros. And Jingtong's an exceptional talent, but he has to prove he can do it in these longer format matches at the Crucible. So Clark, he's been here before. He's been competitive before. He won't be flustered. He won't be flustered by the occasion. And I just think on the handicap with a 3-point frame head start, even money, I think that's a good bet.
Love the sound of that. Right, now is the time at home where you get your pen, you get your notepad, and you get ready. We've got 2 of the shrewdest minds here. So going into the 2022 Snooker World Championship, we will recap all of the bets that we've mentioned. Now, Henry, if you can remember them all, let's start with you.
Yeah, outright, I'd be with Mark Williams each way at 33-1, and a small play at a big price on Hossein Amplifier at 100-1. And then rolling through the quarters, quarter 1, again with Mark Williams. Quarter 2, I think Kyron Wilson's a solid bet there. Quarter 3, I think I'd favour John Higgins over Neil Robertson. And then the fourth quarter, the final quarter, I'd have a little go at a big price on Scott Donaldson at 60-1. And then moving on to the first round matches, the bank of the first round would be Kyron Wilson to beat Ding Junhui for me. And then a couple of bigger prices. Hopefully we can get a good spin out of them. And that'd be Scott Donaldson to beat Mark Allen and Hossein Provide to beat Judd Trump.
Sounds like a solid portfolio, Henry. What about you, Aaron?
For me, in the outright, it's 2 members of the class of 92. It's not Ronnie, but Higgins and Williams, both each way. I like those to go well at big prices. In quarter 1, Mark Williams to come through that one at the expense of Mark Selby. In quarter 2, I'll be taking on Judd Trump with Kyron Wilson and Anthony McGill. Quarter 3, Robbo looks vulnerable to me, so that'll be John Higgins. And quarter 4, I think Ron is a worthy favourite. Whether you want to be pieing in at 7-5, I'm not sure, but he looks like the likely winner to me. And my 2 best bets in round 1 would be Matthew Stevens to beat Jack Lazowski, and then Jamie Clark with a 3.5 frame head start on the handicap against Xiao Jingtong.
Excellent. Thank you so much, James. I hope you managed at home to get all of those down. If not, just rewind it a little bit and listen again. Enjoy all of the action. It's a cracking few weeks of sport coming up. Cannot wait to get stuck into the action at the Crucible. As always, we have to mention it. Both Henry and Aaron have put up a lot of selections here. Only ever gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Bets Club on Racing Post Sport. We'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.